It's that time again, guys! It is the time on YouTube where I purposefully embarrass myself by reading my first drafts on the internet to show you that it's really not that serious. First drafts are meant to be goofy, they're meant to be good, they're meant to be bad, they're meant to be anything that they are because it's just a first draft and it's really not that serious. This is a series that I started about a year ago on Valentine's Day to encourage writers to continue to love their works. I'll link the other videos in the description. Today's video is a little bit different than the others because I chose the excerpt by randomly generating words. So there's a selection of words that I randomly generated and I went into my document and I found excerpts that contain that word. Some of these excerpts had like a light line cleanup. Some of them have been completely untouched. Now, everything from this video today is going to be from my contemporary fantasy novel, Sunless Ground. This is a personal project, a goofy little AU that is part of a series I've been writing since 2021. The first book is called Seventh Virtue. I'm not publishing these books, so I explain the entire plot in a video, which I will link in the description if you aren't familiar with my work. And I'll give context as we go, but if something doesn't make sense, don't even worry about it. This episode, we're really going to be focusing on dialogue. This was pretty unintentional. When I randomly generated the words and then picked the excerpts, I picked everything at random, so I didn't pick specific excerpts, and a lot of them ended up being dialogue. I personally am very insecure about my dialogue, and I find it kind of silly, but then I was like, all writing is silly. All writing is kind of embarrassing. Let's get into the habit in 2025 of, willfully embarrassing ourselves because it's really not that serious. Let's dive in. So we're gonna do 3 excerpts based off of these literal random word generations. If I don't have a word, I will find another one. The first word that will be in the excerpt that I'm exposing to you today is flight. The second will be exchange, and drumroll please, the third will be front. So I'm gonna go into my document right now and just pull random excerpts that correlate with those words, and then I'm going to expose them to you and we're gonna laugh at me because writing is just a little silly thing. Like, why are we just making things up and writing them down? And it's fun and we share them with people. Okay, we're back in the random word generator because I did not have flight in my book. So I'm going to rerun for smart, and then I'm gonna pick 2 others. So it's gonna be smart, screeching, oh no, and protect. Smart, screeching, and protect. This is gonna be so fun. All right, people, welcome to my document where we're gonna read through the several excerpts that I have here. Like I said, they are pretty much first drafts. The first word that I rolled was exchange, and here is that exchange. In these videos, I literally just show you the drafts and talk to you about what I like about them. So let's hope I can find something. A knock on the door. Darren stays where he is for a second longer before rising and opening it up. Both Lonan and Foster on the other side. It's time, Foster says, eyes flaring when he notices Reeves awake. He rushes forward, ignoring Darren as he moves to press his hands to Reeves' face, glancing at the developing bruise on her throat as if to make note of its color. Are you feeling okay? What's it time for? Reeve asks. Every single man in that room exchanges a glance. If you think about alienating me from your schemes, I'll make all your heads spin till tomorrow evening. Sounds like she's fine, comes Bev, who now parts her way through Lonan, then Darren, then Foster. Sorry to break it to you, but we're not staying in New York. Reeve blinks. What? Reeve, Darren starts, rolling his sleeves back down to his wrists, and Reeve realizes now he wears them up like that when he's in the middle of working, of moving. We can't stay here. She studies him, hunting for a soft spot to land, for an explanation more translucent than opaque. So we're heading into the city? It's not safe for you here, Foster adds, his voice taking on that sickly calm used on her whenever someone wants to avoid a blow-up. So we're going into the city, right? Reeve repeats. My roof's back in Oklahoma, my home. It's a lot harder to find people up there. It's safe, adds Lonan, the coward who can't look at her from the ground. Elias is there, Foster continues, and so is my sister. But Harrison is not, Reeve spits, her chest rising and falling more rapidly now as her breaths hollow out. I'm not leaving New York until he's safe. Our priority right now, Darren says gently, always gentle. Why is he so gentle for a man so ready to rip out her heart? Is you. If Joel is on our tail, then we'll stop him, Reeve says. I will stop him. She poises to get off the bed. Sure, there are 3 men and a woman stronger than all of them combined in front of her, but she's fast and has always been a good runner. She could make it to the car before any of them could blink. This is so fun. Okay, so the context of this excerpt, which I should have given first, but we're gentle with everything. The writing and Rachel not thinking of how to structure this video. In Sunless Ground, Reeve is separated from the other narrator, whose name is Harrison, who saved her life, basically exchanged his life for hers. He's like, okay, I'll be a prisoner. Fine. And she has been really upset since all of this occurred, and her goal has just been to go and find him. But she has just been attacked pretty badly. There was sort of the hint at that with the bruise on her throat. And so their plans to go rescue Harrison have to sort of be halted, and she's not happy about that. I thought this was actually more fun to read than I thought it was going to be. I really liked that the pace of the dialogue, like it doesn't meander. Like we really do get to the point. Like she's not taking any bullshit. There were some parts that I know that I would have critiqued. Like if this wasn't a critique, there are a few places for an explanation more translucent than opaque. At first I was like, wait, this kind of ate because it's more than translucent. So we're going to focus on the fact that like I loved that I used translucent here. The other part I didn't love as much because I feel like that's kind of, yeah, obviously it's the opposite of translucent is opaque. So it doesn't really tell us much, but this is not a critique. I do like that word choice. I thought that was really, sometimes you just have to fake it. Okay. And then hear this bit, sickly calm used on her whenever someone wants to avoid a blow up, which I think is actually kind of funny. I think maybe if I intonated it differently when I was reading it out loud, it would have been funnier. So those are like moments that I'd be like, oh no, I would agonize over them. And me of like 5 years ago would have been like, I can't write past this sentence because it's stopping me from doing everything, when in fact it's not. And you can literally just keep going. It's fine. Something else I liked is, Elias is there. Foster continues. Foster is one of Reeve's friends. So is my sister. He's like, don't even worry about it. Like, Oklahoma will be fun. They're in New York right now. You can meet all these new people. And she's like, I don't care. Harrison's not there. And she wants to stay in New York State because that's where Harrison is. She was planning on going to get him as soon as she got better. She can't do that as easily if she's far, far away, right? So, and I love this part here. There are 3 men and a woman stronger than all of them combined in front of her. Like, don't mess with Bev. But she's fast and has always been a good runner. She can make it to the car before any of them could blink. Like, I think it really shows her kind of frazzled mindset of, I need to find a solution to this. Like, no one that I love is listening to me. Everybody's sort of against me in this moment. And I could outrun all of them. I could outsmart all of them. So I think that's kind of a fun, like, big ensemble conversation, which I always struggle with. So I think that was pretty effective at also getting the exposition across. Like, I literally needed to explain to Reeve through the characters what was going to be happening to her and to everyone else moving forward, because obviously she wasn't there when that plan was made. And I think this excerpt does that pretty effectively in the dialogue. Number 2, we're going to be looking at the excerpt for Front. So I rolled Front on this one and let's read it. Reeve's breath catches at the sight of him, something raw in his face, exposed. She understands in that split second that she's tried so many times to take away what Darren holds most precious to him, her. When she kicked him out of her apartment, when she ignored him in the cabin, when she lied to him over the phone, rejecting herself for him as a defense. Darren kneels now right in front of her, holding her hands in his, warm, soft, smelling of amber. His eyes sparkle with the candlelight, and she loves him, which is the scariest part. To be loved is to be known. I will love you, Darren says, squeezing her hand when she looks up, tears burning her eyes. I'll accept the worst parts of you, and I will adore them. That is my choice. Okay. He's like, this is my priority. Okay. I did not do a very good Charles impression. This is sweet. Okay. Romance. I don't think I ever really show you guys like any romance that I write, because I don't usually write romance in like this nice way. The only way is usually between Darren and Reeve, and they're like OTP of all time. And so this is really cute. I recently wrote this, actually. I think in my most recent writing vlog, I talked about how there's a scene where Darren's talking to Reeve and it's like kind of giving Bridgerton, like, I love you. This is the scene. So I think I was really going for those like Bridgerton, like confessions of love vibes. And I think we captured that here. Like, I am seeing things that I could fix. And the only reason I'm pointing them out is so that you know that, like, I'm aware that there can be issues in my writing, but I'm also still choosing to, like, this is good. Something raw in his face exposed. Yeah. Is that the same thing that I said twice? Maybe. Yeah. But it's okay. Rejecting herself for him as a defense. Is that, like, kind of a little too overt? Like, maybe I should be a little subtler with that theme thing? Yeah. But it's fine, because I think in the context of the scene, it functions fine and I can still keep moving forward. So I think this is a pretty sweet excerpt. I think that's so interesting that to be loved is to be known. That sort of quote, that very famous quote, I can't remember by who. Maybe in a revision, I would be more specific, like with these moments where she's tried to take this precious thing herself away from Darren, who loves her. I might dig into that a little bit more, but for now, like, this is fine. Like, it gives me, like, the foundation. So that's a nice short excerpt and a little romantic. I'm always like, I don't know how to write romantic dialogue without it sounding cheesy, but I'm like, listen, Darren kind of is, so let him eat, The next excerpt is smart. So here we go. She lets him guide her back to the love seat, lets him fit her mug of tea back in her hand. He takes the seat next to her, positioning himself so he faces her, and Foster sits again across from them, closing the book of Sudoku puzzles. Darren reaches for the plate of biscuits and begins breaking them into smaller pieces. The morning of the storm, your birthday, I'd gone into the city for your gifts. The weather was fine, a little slow, but it was fine. He passes Reeve a piece of the biscuit and doesn't continue until she takes it and slowly chews, sipping on tea to help wash it down. That's when I found you on the hill when you were talking about diligentia. Reeve does remember. He'd held the same paper bag she opened that night then. Darren passes her another piece of the biscuit. The storm looked worse than I originally thought, so I went back out after burying the rabbit to gather more supplies. I didn't think it would take me long and was sure I'd get back before the storm started, but I got stuck. I woke up in the middle of the night, Reeve murmurs. You weren't there. I was trying to get back, but the roads weren't clear and I knew it wouldn't be smart. I stayed at a motel in the city. It was killing me worrying about you. So we're getting some more exposition. I think it's always so interesting writing exposition and dialogue in genre fiction because I come from mostly my literary background, and I just usually don't give exposition in that way because there's really no plot. Usually that's irrelevant to other characters where they have to explain what they've been doing to other people. And so I find that that's another one of sort of my Achilles heels. I don't know how to approach that in a way that seems natural because there's always that writing advice of, don't explain things in dialogue or whatever. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to do it any other way? So I think this is a good example. I like it because it's clear, it's to the point. I love that we start with some of these specific details. The book of Sudoku puzzles, of course, Foster and his Sudoku, oh my god. And then the biscuits, and I love that Darren is doing something physically in the scene. While he's talking to her, he's breaking this piece of biscuit for her to eat. Reeve's inciting incident is when Darren, who ends up, being her man, goes missing. She kind of goes out to search for him. So he does get separated from her at the end of chapter 1. So he's explaining what was happening to him there. We have an excerpt now for Screeching. At midnight, he and Reeve and Joel sat around the kitchen table, pecking at a blueberry pie that had been in the fridge since the week before. Red Solo cups and somehow confetti had been strewn all over the apartment. It would take the entire next day to clean. Reeve pushed at her serving, her fork tines scraping at the plate. She'd learned recently that the marks left on ceramic plates weren't actual scratches, but the metal of the fork actually transferring to the surface, which meant they were entirely reversible. She drew several circles, the plate screeching, then several flowers. I think this is a cool excerpt. And I mean, right away as I'm reading, I'm like, okay, there's a repetition here with several circles, several flowers. There is a repetition with actually and actual. But does it matter? No, because it's the first draft. In my 2024 reading video, I shared kind of what came right before this excerpt, but this is a flashback that Reeve, one of our narrators, has of a party that her ex-boyfriend Joel put on, and Joel's friend Robbie is there. And so I think this is a really cool sort of when the party's over moment. It feels like that to me. It feels like, okay, everything is quiet. We've got the red Solo cups and then confetti. And I love how she says, somehow, confetti. It's almost like this entire party has like whizzed past her head, and now she's sort of sitting in the aftermath of it and realizing like what that aftermath looks like. Wait, I got an 8. That was good. Okay. And then the other bit that I liked, even though it's written a little bit awkwardly, in my opinion, I like she drew several circles, the plate screeching, then several flowers. Like, you know, this explanation of she learned recently that marks left on ceramic planes weren't actual scratches, but the metal of the fork actually transferring to the surface. That's a little awkward in my opinion, but like, I love the direction that I'm going in, and I'm confident that I could, you know, make that more concise in the next edit. So slay. The next excerpt is the final one, and it is going to be for Protect. So a lot of these excerpts with Darren are all connected. Funnily, it's just coincidence where Darren's like finally back. He's also explaining what happened to him, what happened to Harrison, and what happened to Reeves' brother, Lonan, who is another very important character. I will link all the videos that explain everything in the description. This starts with Darren dialogue. I sensed he was somewhere in New York, so that's where I went, but I didn't exactly end up running into Humilitas. You found Lonan. Reeve closes her eyes. You found Humilitas. Darren nods, just not the one I was expecting. So is that it? He didn't tell you anything else? No, Darren says. I tried asking on our drive up. I felt you'd be here, but even in all that time, he didn't say anything else. You don't even know how he escaped. Darren shakes his head. Reeve, Foster says, leaning forward and folding his hands together. I can help relax Lonan, make sure he's physically okay. And then let me talk to him. He'll talk to me. I'm not sure that'll work, Foster says. Lonan doesn't seem quite connected with reality. If you push him, that distance might increase. So then what do you want me to do? Sit around while we wait to figure out how we can help Harrison? He's in that house alone. There's no one to protect him. Trust me, Foster says. Harrison can protect himself. Reeve shoots back up, her mug of tea splashing with the sudden movement. Darren rises too, setting the saucer of biscuits onto the chair as he steps in front of him. Let me see him, Reeve says, her gaze so intense against Darren's she sees a glimmer in his eye like he wants to look away. You know Harrison well, says Foster, rising now too. But think about how much longer I've known him. You're friends, I don't dispute that, but he's my brother. If you'd let your brother suffer, knowing someone else could help him, there is something wrong with you. He's not fragile, Reeve. Even if something's happening to him, he'll survive. He's stubborn. Don't talk to me like you know him better than I do. And why wouldn't I? Darren shoots Foster a look that almost says, please don't. A warning, not out of disapproval, but desperation. Foster still ignores it, stepping closer to Reeve. Who do you think was with him every day you weren't? Who do you think relived the same week with him over and over and over again as a way to keep him alive? He wanted to die, you know. What you did, what Lonan did, he blamed himself so severely for what happened to his mother that it almost killed him. Guess who had to drag him out of it? Did you know that about him? When Reeve doesn't answer, Foster yanks a hand through his hair, his voice loud enough to rattle the china cups when he repeats, Did you? Ooh, drama. Okay, I think this one is good because we're getting some, confrontational Foster. He's usually not confrontational. Foster is Harrison's best friend, but he sees him as his brother. They grew up together, and he's getting frustrated with Reeve for, I have to go get Harrison now. Like, we need to find out right now. And Foster's like, there's nothing we can do. And she's like, well, then you don't care about Harrison. And he's like, what the hell? So I think you could see his frustration. I like how sort of the conversation flows from Foster being like, okay, let's be practical. I'm going to help Lonan. Lonan was with Harrison and then they got separated. And so he has information on how to help Harrison, but he's just not mentally available to speak about it. So Reeve wants to go and kind of bug him and be like, hey, where is he? And Foster's like, you can't do that. He's not there. So yeah, I think this is nice. Something that sort of stuck out to me right away was the China Cups image. I love that. I think that is so perfect, especially because China Cups are so sort of fragile and then they're being rattled. Foster himself is sort of a sensitive, not fragile person, but sensitive person. And so to see these China Cups rattling as the sensitive person is talking more sternly than he usually does, I think that says something to me. And then I think his dialogue here, like his intensity, he's like, who the fuck do you think you are, girl? And honestly, Reeve really needs that in this book, because she's got some audacity, well-placed audacity, but audacity nonetheless. And again, I think like dealing with 3 characters is always tough to me when they're all in a conversation together, and I think I managed it pretty well. Those are all the excerpts from this video. Let me know what you guys thought and what you guys think of first drafts in general. I'd love to chat in the comments, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.